Good morning. It's a pleasure to be back. I tried YouTube Live yesterday, and I'm going to be doing it every Thursday, probably at 12:30 in the morning or afternoon, hoping to catch you on a lunchtime break and discuss whatever issues are important to you. I know what's important to me because I am discussing those issues. When I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm thinking about what's been bothering me, what issues have come to the forefront. Sure, I'm watching the atrocities in Ukraine, and I feel dreadful. Already, Sweden and Finland are joining NATO, understanding that there's got to be a strong deterrence against powers who feel that they can take matters in their own hand and destroy the civilization that we are trying to build up. Which brings me to crimes against humanity. They're not just in the Ukraine. Sure, the first Russian soldier is going on trial this week for crimes against humanity, for having shot an unarmed man on a bicycle after they had stolen a car because their tanks had broken down. That's one example of crimes against humanity, but there are so many others in our own country. It's saddening and makes me really angry that people would think so little of the worth and the lives of others. Corporate power must be diminished at all costs in this country. They've become evil, totally evil. They were complicit with Trump in the meatpacking industry to play down the effects of COVID-19 on their workers, to ensure that the Labor Department under Trump watered down the laws so that people were no longer protected from OSHA inspections, from minor upgrades to facilities that would have kept people alive, from basic information that could have kept families safe. 59,000 people that we know of became ill in the meatpacking industry. There were no shortages of beef. Meat was going overseas to China at a record clip. These corporations were making money, and they were complicit in the death of 269 individuals who worked for them. People who were most likely people of color, people who were poor. They took advantage of them. And what about their families? In the early part of COVID, we knew every person had the potential to spread to 265 others this infectious virus. And they and Trump and Mike Pence and the lobbies got together to convince the country that we needed to keep the supply chains going so that these people in power could make even more money. I feel that is disgusting to my core. I was a businesswoman. I defended my people from harm. One time we had to go in an apartment house complex, and I'll never forget it. And there was a hole in the ground where the cesspool would go in, and the supervisors of the job site put boards over that hole so that the men could walk over the hole in freezing cold weather with 300-400 pounds of carpet on their backs and think that everyone was going to be safe. Thank God we were safe, but I protested loudly. And when I protested, I was met with abuse. That my foreman, thanks to him, he said, "It's not her that's being a sissy," because I was being called a sissy for wanting to protect my people. He said, "It's not her." He said, "We want the protection. We don't want to fall. We don't want to work in unsafe conditions. And she is sticking up for our rights." Because for me, my employees were my family extension, or my family. I really liked all of them and loved them dearly, and was involved in their lives, and was proud to have a record with OSHA and liability and compensation insurance, so that we had very extremely low rates. These men didn't think about that. They didn't think about the people working for them as being part of their family, the people working for them having families of their own that they were concerned about. At the last count, there were about 260,000 kids who were left homeless, left without one parent. I may be exaggerating. It may be only 167,000. But that's dreadful. And all over this country, we're looking for mental health experts to help people overcome the trauma of the isolation and loneliness of the last 2 years and the effects of COVID on people and how they feel about reintegrating into society and what's happened to their families. About 10% of the population who's gotten COVID, they're suffering from long COVID, which are extraneous ailments of fatigue, of dementia, of unimaginable susceptibility to diabetes and other systemic diseases. All because corporations were complicit in keeping people working in unsafe conditions. COVID spread like wildfires through this country. It didn't have to be. We lost 1 million people, perhaps more, because COVID was downplayed. And worse, anti-vaxxers were encouraged. The state's governors themselves encouraged no mask mandates. They encouraged downplaying COVID so people would work and become ill. You don't think that's a crime against humanity? I do. I think it's a crime against humanity, and those people should not be in any position of power to influence the public. No siree, I'd vote them out in a nanosecond. And what else bothers me? Usually, I concentrate on crimes against humanity. I concentrate on economic stability, how we can get equality. But I must admit that Roe v. Wade, the potential of overturning it, to me, is the last straw of the Republican minority persistence. Nobody who supports this supports the restriction of voting rights, the banning of books. Now, an attack on women's reproductive health. Even if they want IVF treatment, that might be affected too. And they're going after the LGBTQ and A. And A is anybody else who respects them as individuals and as people. That too. Are they trying to reproduce the McCarthy era? I don't know if any of you remember Joe McCarthy. He went after all the entertainers in this country, and he, with J Edgar Hoover, they used to keep lists on people. Lists if you read books. I know, I was on a list for being a member of the Literary Book Club. Found that list years later. However, is that what we're going to go back to? McCarthyism? Well, you give the Republicans that are in power today half an inch, they're going to take the whole arm, and yes, they're going to bring us back to the bad old days. So my advice to everyone, because there are primaries afoot, I wouldn't come out and vote for any Republican at all. It's got to be an independent or a Democrat at this point. And I would certainly put up Democratic candidates in West Virginia against Joe Manchin. Unfortunately, that's going to take a couple of years. And Sinema in Arizona. 2 places where people are dying of COVID. A lot, and a lot more than the rest of the country. I say no to all these crimes against humanity. I say support Ukraine. I do. Support our allies in Europe and NATO. I do. But continue globalization. Revamp those Department of Labor laws that were put in place under George W. Bush and then strengthened for the corporations under Trump. Revamp them. Give employees a chance to live, for Pete's sake. This is even more basic than a basic living wage and a basic minimum wage. People deserve the right to live, to get the vaccines that could save their lives. Sure, they may get sick, but they won't go to the hospital, and they won't die necessarily, and their families will still have people to love. That's humane. That's Christian, Jewish, Muslim. That's in all our religions. Hindu, Sikh. Everyone wants brotherly love. Doesn't matter who you are, but I guess if you're a corporation and you're just a numbers cruncher because you came from hedge funds and you don't have any real purpose anyway except to generate income, what an empty life you must lead. Do you think that when you have so little care for everyone else, do you think you can really care for your families as well? It's hard to have relationships. Do you lead such an insular life that only the upper tier of society appeals to you and nobody else? And you don't give a damn, and there's not enough money in the federal government to support your needs? We got to rethink how we want our society to look. There's a good life out there. You look behind me. I collect it. I've got books that I've lived with all my life. I've got stuff that I've acquired. I used to think I had an acquisitive gene, that there was a special gene that made me collect, and then I found someone who collects even more than I do. But again, he's got more resources. But life is beautiful, and life can give us so much. When we start thinking about what we value, Then we can start thinking about the government that we really want. Otherwise, we're going to get these people in power who really don't care about the poor or the middle class. And the middle class is probably anyone who makes up to 40 million bucks at this point. So let's think about what we're grateful for and what we value, and let's try and choose those kinds of people to represent us in government and to also alter these draconian labor laws that we're stuck with. And don't forget, Biden, we still need that For the Families Act. And shame on any Republican who doesn't look sheepishly at what he's done to be complicit in crimes against humanity. See you next week. I'm not smiling because I'm mad as hell. But in my heart, I know that you are too. And because I know that so many people understand, that makes me happy. Because I know we're going to have a better future. We'll all work for it together. God bless you all, and see you next week. Bye now, and take care. And don't forget, I'm going live next Thursday. Do come on to my channel, thevoiceofjoyce.me, live on YouTube. And let's discuss the issues that just concern us. Bye now, and take care.